I was just trying to tone down my comment. I am cold with my coat on.
It's chilly.
Yep, captain on the bridge.
Captain on the bridge.
Hold on, I'm working on it. Here you go.
That's funny. So
Right,
this,
we know he's there.
so this made the sound. I whistled it. Then we get to hear it.
Did you give me this pen?
No.
So maybe I found it in here. I said that I heard forgot my pen at
And
the.
it's A-okay, you can tell me you don't like it, I just,
Well, I don't know, it smells real good.
yeah.
It was just a matter of trying to find a coffee that I thought would pair
Yeah.
with it well.
And this is the first time I've tried it, and I probably should have picked a better coffee to try it with, you know what I mean? I mean, I'm gonna drink it, cause, you know, I'm not wasting coffee.
I feel that. Don't waste coffee, it's like one of those, it should be a sin.
I like your post you put to the Sludge Club, Chloe. It says,
Oh,
I am holding my coffee, therefore I am extremely busy.
I saw that.
Sounds like along those lines.
That's okay, I keep wanting to post the ones that say something about if my book is open, your mouth should be shut. But I'm like, no, because it's borderline that people are starting to call me obsessed with books. I was told that I have an addiction. I'm like,
So?
I'd rather be addicted to intelligence than stupidity. I'm sorry.
We're streaming, Vera, we're streaming.
Congratulations. Good victory. It was close though. It was CD. If he wouldn't have played well again, we might have had that. It got like where it was like, wait, I was beating him by like 30 points, and then all of a sudden I was down by 20.
So Tom and I always, we don't chit chat a whole lot.
Yeah.
But when he plays me,
Yeah.
he texts, and there's sometimes some trash talk going on.
Oh,
and,
yeah,
and then Monday he says, "Congratulations for the win," and I said, "I've not won yet. You still have a 1% chance."
Hey, Mr. Glenn.
I won. The only way I would have lost is if my players, Eckler,
Yeah, I
scored
saw that.
negative
I was
25
like,
points.
Just don't like get any negative points
Just gotta
there.
fix it.
He starts throwing interceptions or something like.
Hi, guys. Hi, Laura. Heard you're under the weather. Hi, Catherine. Heard you're helping out India.
She's fixing India.
Good luck. It might take.
Somebody needs to fix it.
And I don't know, so Chuck and Vera, I don't know if you saw, there's a thing that, like, you can it'll look at your past stats and it'll tell you who your easiest opponent has been and who your toughest opponent has been. And for me, have you guys seen that stat?
No, I have not.
So yeah, it's weird, you got to dig through all those settings. Anyway, so I saw this. My easiest opponent, Tom. I beat him twice. I beat him twice. I played him twice. Or maybe this year anyway. And then my toughest opponent, Sean.
Yeah, yeah.
Sean's team is pretty good. I think you're making a joke about my head. Ha ha. That's to Catherine. She says there's a big glare on her screen. I can fix that. Hold on.
Rude.
Oh.
It is chilly. Yes. I'm kidding. I'll take that off. All right. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know. Lost count.
Girls, I
10,
don't care what you
so-
have to do, but rig it so I answer the first few questions and then be done.
I got you, fam.
Thank you.
That means you have to do the end ones.
No, you can rig it for yourself too, but just make sure I'm in,
No, I got it.
Does everybody else hear this? They're conspiring against Anita. They're conspiring against you and my mom. How do you feel about this?
Don't hear any of this.
Don't hear any of this.
Isn't it time to take your listening ears off?
All right, we're gonna get started. Got a couple of people that not able to be here tonight. They are watching live though.
They're lost, not ours.
I'm gonna go under the assumption that you guys have your homework done.
Never assume. We need proof.
Laura wants proof.
I know, she'll text me a picture of it.
So Laura's looking forward to that text, Catherine.
I technically have my whole page done because I had to write out all the questions.
Yeah, I saw you working in the dark and writing that all out. Glenn, could I call on you to do the closing prayer tonight? All right,
By the
thank you.
Christmas tree lights.
Well, Chris, it was dim. All right, it was really dim. So, tradition. We've been starting with the conclusion. So we're Genesis chapters 15 and 16. God promises to bless Abram with a large number of descendants. Also promised to give him lots of land. And then Abram and Sarai struggle with their faith. They take matters into their own hands.
Dun.
And there's some consequences for all that. So we'll talk about that. Did anybody have any problems with the fill in the blank this week? That's kind of a hey. In about not next week, but the next week, there will be a trick fill in the blank. I'm just going to warn you. How will it be tricky? Well, you'll find out. How about,
like 2 words in there, we have to fill in the rest of it.
no. Well, well.
Shh, Vera, shh.
I can't say too much more about it. Just don't overthink it. Just don't
Too
overthink
late.
it.
You're talking to a room of classic overthinkers.
I know. Did anybody have any problems with the definitions? I mean, I thought they were hard.
Besides C's wasn't in there.
Mom and I were talking. I thought they were hard.
Yeah, I had to look up other like words that were related to these, or like in the verse itself, like look up that and look up a Greek or Hebrew word that was similar.
Addison was like, they were easy. So
But there
All right.
was one that was it fled that there's like 8 different Hebrew words and like 4
Yeah.
different Greek
Right.
words that mean that. So it's like, okay, so then I had to go, okay, we're in Genesis 15, and I singled out just those verses to try to get as close to what it.
that was one of the issues that I was having with some of them. They're like the definitions were like
Yeah.
pages and pages. So anyway, we'll get there in a
Like I saw
minute.
fled was to flee.
Well, shh, don't give it away. The flea. Are you talking about the creature?
No.
Oh, okay. All right, fill in the blanks. We'll start there. That's the, Chuck, you said that was your answer? All right, so we're going to start in the fill in the blanks. Genesis 15, verse 1. You guys got the wheel spinning? No? Well, it's time to spin. It's a little different. They were here the last couple of weeks, right? No.
What are we gonna
no.
do without our wheel spinners?
Yeah, well, what are we going to do without the wheel spinners?
We have teenage wheel spinners. Teen spinners.
Sounds like a.
Go.
So. All right, Anita, you get the
Oh, she loves that.
chapter 15, verse number 1.
After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision, saying, Do not be afraid, Abram, I am your shield, your exceedingly great reward.
All right, very good. Everybody get that? All right. And then chapter 15, verse 6.
Does that mean again?
Silence. I don't know what's going on over there. I think the wheel's taking a while. Chloe, just. Rachel? All right, Rachel, you get chapter 15, verse 6.
And he believed in the Lord, and he accounted it to him for righteousness.
All right, very good. Everybody got that one? All right, so far we're all getting 100%. You can spin the wheel again.
I love how everybody gets excited when they get these fill in the blanks, and then later on they're like, oh.
Yeah, you hear the. Yeah. I kind of miss. I do kind of miss hearing the beep 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 beep.
No. Yes,
What?
yes.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
like
Turn the volume up.
And the clap
Kinda.
in it.
I still need
I
a.
know, I want
I need a soundboard over here or something.
It's been called.
Yeah. So. All right, Laura. 15:13.
Then he said to Abram, know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will afflict them 400 years.
All right, very good. And we'll talk more about what that means here in a little bit. All right, everybody got that? While they're spinning the wheel, anybody got anything different? No, they were going to be like, they were sojourners. Is it going? They do?
Chuck.
It's like a golf clap. It's like
Yes.
All right, Chuck. 16:1.
Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, and she had an Egyptian maidservant whose name was Hagar.
All right, everybody got that? All right. You guys could be spinning the wheel. I thought this was interesting. The New King James Version spells it Borne.
Yes.
Is that the way we
I had a
normally?
hard time like writing it until I kept crossing it off and wrote it, and then I was like,
It's Laura.
What is going
Thank
on
you.
over there? You guys doing some
I
shady
have a
stuff.
feeling
Well,
that
anyway,
will-
that's a little.
No, I mean, to be fair though, I feel like they would have put themselves for those fillers. Cause that's just a matter of just reading the verse if you don't have it.
No, it's,
Oh,
well, she said she paid him well,
Yeah,
so I don't know.
yeah.
All right, chapter 16, verse 4.
So he went into Hagar, and she conceived, and when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress became despised in her eyes.
All right, everybody got that? All right, very good. So, well, that's going to be brought up in one of those stock questions a little bit later on. So we're going to move into the terms to define now. And man, that wheel is just... All right, Vera, you get to define the term shield for us.
Okay, so it was a protector, a buckler, which I thought was weird. It's carried by warriors for defense, and in Ezekiel 27:10 it means scales of a crocodile.
I know, I wrote that down.
So I had to write that down because that was cool.
Ezekiel what?
27:10.
The scaly hide of crocodile.
Because when I found that definition, I was like, well, wait, where does it mean that at? So I had to look the verse up.
You know, I saw that. I thought about writing that down. I just didn't have enough room.
Oh, I need room for that.
Yeah, I mean, I could have wrote it down in the side margin there. Anybody got anything extra on that? God's protection. Okay.
That's what I put.
Yeah.
I said use figuratively of God and earthly princes as the defenders of their people.
So sometimes it would refer to people protecting others. In this case, it would be referring to God. You know, sometimes a shield or let's see, the other word was buckler. It's kind of a strange word we probably don't use very often.
English term.
Yeah, so it was a smaller type of shield. Sometimes it was used as a decoration, but sometimes it was used for protection. Sometimes, could you use a shield as a weapon?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Captain America.
Captain America, yeah. Man, for some reason I was saying Teenage Mutant. No, not the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I was saying Power Rangers. Did they have
Power
shields?
Rangers, yes.
Do they have shields? Do they use shields?
Yeah, they did.
Do they? I don't really remember, but anyway, yeah, you can use a shield for any one of those things. Very good. Anybody got anything extra? Anita, you want to share any? You got any extra words of encouragement?
No.
No. We are flying through these,
I
and
can
then
make the wheel spin longer if that's what you're asking.
no, because then there'd just be more dead air of me standing here waiting for the wheel. Boop, boop, boop. The wheel's going boop, 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 boop. Chloe, all right. Why did you drop your head? Or did you struggle with this one? This word is,
Can't read my own writing.
okay, this
There was
word,
another one that had like 7 or 8 different Hebrew words and like
Yes.
3 or 4 Greek words.
Yeah.
yeah, so this word is accounted. Accounted.
Makes sense now. I figured out my writing.
Okay.
Okay, I kind of struggled, I guess.
deemed or considered. That's a good way to put it. Anybody have anything?
Yeah, I said
Extra.
counted too, just because I thought it was funny because I counted and counted too.
To give a reason or explanation for something.
Okay,
Put to think, regard, value, or compute.
okay,
Tell, declare, count, commune, told out.
okay.
Funny how we all
Right.
have different ones.
Okay. Chuck, did you have something
To think, to plan.
to think or to plan? Okay,
Also had to weave.
to weave?
I had that.
Okay.
To fabricate.
Okay. I just put down in this context it means to impute something to someone, and then I was like, impute. I mean, that's a Bible word, right? That's a word we probably don't use very often. But impute means to attribute something to someone. If somebody, I saw an example of this. How did it go? A person stole something, so then I think the penalty or the fine or whatever was imputed on him for something like that. Anyway, this is in regards to Abraham and his righteousness, which we didn't talk about the word righteousness, but what does righteousness mean?
Right living before God.
It's right living before God. So he lived right before God, and so God attributed that to Abraham. Kind of reminds us of Noah, right? Noah was a righteous guy out of all the earth. All right. We're going to go on to the next word. The next word is afflict. Afflict. And the wheels going boop, 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 boop. Chloe.
Chloe, I'm so sorry.
Again, so Chloe, you get to define for us the word afflict.
Cause pain?
Cause pain.
Question mark?
So you're asking a question in regards to the question.
Yes.
All right. I think that's a pretty good way to define it, though. Anybody got anything different or extra?
The idea of looking down or browbeating to depress.
That's good.
Yeah, oppress, cause grief, humble. I thought that was a good word for it because when we're talking about God afflicting people, it's usually in a sense of He's humbling them. To suffer ill, to be maltreated, tormented.
Okay.
Yeah, I got all those.
Distress very much.
To distress very much. I thought this was kind of interesting, thinking about this particular word and thinking about these chapters. It was going to happen to Abraham's descendants, right? They were going to be afflicted, chapter 15, verse 13. And then in the next chapter, we see Sarai afflicted Hagar. So it was just kind of, I don't know, I saw some correlation there between the two
And
things.
that's part of the reason why they ended up afflicted too, so.
Yep. All right, very good. Chloe, do you get to answer the next one?
I would like to.
You would like to?
Yeah, I like
So-
my answers at the first one.
Well, so you probably won't get this one. This,
Oh, it's wrong.
all right, Jody, you get to,
Flee, to run away.
the word fled means
To
To
flee, to run away.
to flee or to run away. All right.
Bolt.
To Chuck, what did you put?
To flee
To
from or away.
Make haste.
Let's see. Make haste.
Addison said to bolt.
To bolt, yeah. That's what I put too. I
Yeah,
put
I
to
like
bolt,
that was
to
good.
to run away.
And then put to flight was another one. I'm like, where are we flying to?
Yeah. They-
He flew.
Although I don't know, I'm
go
pretty
away
sure
in a
Hagar
quick
wished she
like
could
manner.
fly.
There you go, quick like manner.
Yeah,
What?
to go, I put to go in a quick like manner.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, very good. Very good. Anybody else got anything maybe different? Sounds like we all pretty much got the same thing for this particular word. All right, we're going to move on to the next word if you guys want to be spinning the wheel. And the last word to define was the word seize. S-E-E-S, as opposed to the word sailing the seven seas. All right, so Vera sees.
Gazing, stop, look to, sight, consider, discern. I also wrote down a couple verses, 1 Samuel 16:7 and Psalm 33:13, because those are like God seeing affliction in people, so he's knowing what's going on.
So that's comforting, right? That to know that God sees that. It could also be scary to people too, though, right? If you're
Yeah.
not living living that righteous life, not living in accordance to God's will. Yeah, very good. Did I hear somebody say, Jody, did you say that the word sees wasn't in there?
I didn't have anything in the Blue Letter Bible, under the lexicon or the dictionary said something, so,
Well, it's in verse
but
13,
I did
so,
look, yeah, I know. But, so I did look, it's knows, all-knowing God, omniscient.
well, could somebody do me a favor? Could somebody look in the King James Version?
I was looking in the New King James.
Yeah. So
Blue Letter
so if you like,
That's how I had to find
I
it.
just wonder if the King James has it worded a little different.
Yeah, so what I do is instead of going to like the extra things, when I look at the Blue Letter Bible, I search under New King James, but then I just read off of, I go down to the verse that I'm finding it in, so in this
Yeah.
case it was 16:13, and then I read it from that verse, and I use whatever that is, and then I break it down.
And then if they use a word that's a little bit different, then you can click on that
'Cause
word and
it's-
it'll be
it's
the
hard
same.
to find somebody, like, I didn't
sometimes.
find C's either originally,
Yeah.
it was like one of those weird ones, but I'm looking at it.
But I
Yeah.
found it someplace else.
Yeah. I just don't remember what the King James,
Genesis what?
16:13.
And she called the name of the Lord that spake unto her, Thou God seest me, for she said, Have I also here looked after him that seeth me? Seeth.
So, yeah, a little bit different. It's that older English. All right, very good. Looking,
Hang on one second.
okay.
I went a little different route here. If you go to 13, it says, she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her, you are the God who sees. Where she said, I kind of took that could be God's, a name for God.
Yeah, that's absolutely, that's part, generally speaking, we just generally think of God, right? But actually there's lots of names for God, and that would be one of those names that was hyphenated names. Yep, you are the God who sees. I can't search for it now, but it'd be interesting to see what that Hebrew terminology there for that would be. But he's one that's looking. I thought that was interesting. Seeing would be the definition of sees, sight and to view something. So,
Seeth adds like words like regard, gaze, take heed,
Watch.
have vision. So I looked up seeth because I was like, okay, well, what's the difference between that?
so God does take heed, right? He listens to us. He pays attention to us. He knows what's going on. Then it's comforting. So that was comforting to Hagar, right? That's who that's in reference to there in Genesis 16:13. Otherwise, she wouldn't have went back, So, but we'll get to that in a little bit. All right. So questions from the text. We're going to move into this next section here. If you young ladies want to spin the wheel. And if you guys want to giggle and cheer and shout just like Maya and Cabron did when they spun the wheel, it's okay. It's Chuck. All right, Chuck. Question number 1. What promise did God make with Abram in chapter 15, verses 4 and 5?
A child to be their heir, descendants shall be as numerous as the stars.
All right. Very good. Anybody got anything different? So do you think Abram understood what God was talking about there? He's gonna, God made promises.
How could you really understand that? Like, because at this point, he has no children, and God's telling him his children are going to be his descendants are going to be like the stars. And he had a clearer vision than we have in the city of those stars. So to him that had to have been mind blowing.
So who did he think was going to be his heir?
The one that lived in his household, but it wasn't his.
Yeah, so it would have been that servant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been that servant Eleazar of Damascus. And God's like, no, you're gonna have an heir, an offspring, and there would be too innumerable to count. So that word, one born, let's say it would be 15, verse 3. Then Abram said, look, you've given me no offspring. Indeed, one born in my house is my heir. One born, there's a marginal footnote that says a servant. So Abram at this time thought one of his servants was going to be his heir. So he struggled in understanding God's promises to him. Anybody got anything different or extra for question number 1? Everybody get that right? I just heard one. Did it? Yeah. I'm gonna start going around the room. Did you get it right? Did you get it right? Did you get it right? If you're online, did you get it right? You can just leave that in the chat box, I guess. I don't know.
I have Catherine's answers, I can tell you.
I heard she was working on the text. That's funny. So if you struggle with anything, you can go to Catherine's answers.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
Okay. It's like phoning a friend.
Sure.
I'm getting ideas now. We should fill out our sheets and then swap them around.
That sounds so fun.
That reminds me of
I
school.
want to be the person that gets Rachel's sheet.
Glenn, you remember doing that in school? Did you ever do that as a teacher? You have the students swap the sheets around? Yeah. Maybe not a good idea. It could be fun. I keep my
Problem
sheet
is,
though.
Nobody would hardly be able to read each other's writing because you're so used to reading your own.
Well, then you'd be like,
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
yeah, you'd be like, yeah, help me
Like
out.
magnifying glass. Like, what you're written here.
I mean, we can't even read our own writing.
So for future classes, write more legible.
Type it out, guys.
Type it out. All right, if you guys want to spin the wheel, we're really gonna scare people away from our class. Just having fun. I liked what you said, Chuck, about we study, but we have fun when we're doing it. So, all right, bonus mom. Question 2: how did God make the covenant with Abram in Genesis 15, 9 through 11, and 17 through 18? Really, 9 through 18.
So I said, cut the animals in half and place them opposite each other, except the birds. Exact instructions: 3-year-old heifer, goat, ram, turtle dove, a young pigeon. At sundown, a smoking oven and burning torch passed between the pieces. Then the covenant was made with Abraham. This is the land seed promise.
All right, excellent.
I
Anybody
have to
got?
say, because you skipped that middle section, it was hard, and then I flipped my page and I went, oh, okay, good, because I was frustrated that we skipped that whole middle section. I'm like, that's part of the whole promise.
This is
Yeah.
just the covenant.
Yeah. All right. Anybody got anything extra?
No, that was exactly what I had.
So it seems kind of strange, right, to take these animals, 3-year-old heifer, female goat, and the ram, cut them in half, except they didn't do this with the birds, right, the turtle dove and the young pigeon. But they split the animals in half, they put pieces on one side, and then they put the other piece on the exact opposite side, and then they laid them out, and then someone would pass down the middle. Is that strange to us? That's the way. Why would they do that? Like, I mean, that's the way they made their covenants. That's what they did. Do we have traditions in the way we do covenants today?
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, don't we fill out?
They're like
Don't,
contracts.
yeah, don't we have like stacks and stacks and stacks of pages with all the legalese, and then you send it to a lawyer who tries to explain it, or he might change things, and then you sign on the dotted line, and then, but then you would think a contract would be binding, right?
Yeah.
And,
it
but
should
today,
be,
but today things are a little bit
all
different.
Clauses and things to get out
We do see an example of this splitting in the animals and passing in between Jeremiah 11. I believe it's verse 4. I jotted down here. Jeremiah 11:4. So that was an ancient custom to do this. So the custom was, or this covenant was made, if you notice, God's the one that passed through. Abraham didn't pass through. So this is God's covenant with Abraham. This is God's binding agreement that he's making with Abraham. Now there was a couple of symbols that passed through.
Yes,
What was the first one?
the oven.
Okay. Anybody have any guesses as to what the
Our
oven?
oven.
No, it would be a burning furnace type thing, a fire pot. Yeah.
That's why they call it smoking, 'cause
Yeah. So a lot of people say that that is the coming punishment, the misery that was going to be coming upon Israel in Egypt. And then you had the burning lamp. Yeah, the burning lamp or that torch. Who's the lamp?
God.
It would be God. Yeah, and if we remember, after the Israelites came out and they were being led in the wilderness, they had the pillar, right, by day, and then they had the that pillar of light at night to guide them. So, all right.
Catherine also pointed out that these were clean animals.
Yes, they were.
And there was exact instructions.
Exact instructions on how to do that. Yeah.
Again, I obviously messed this up, but the question was, how did God make the covenant with Abram?
Yep.
And according to these verses, he did it in darkness. It's not what Abraham did, it's
No.
how did God do it?
Yeah. So,
He did it in darkness. That's all I.
well, in darkness, yeah, and they were laying there, right, and then God passed through these things. It took both parties, right?
No, I'm not God, I'm just.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
just
going-
a,
It says, how did God? Well, he
Yeah.
did it in darkness.
In darkness.
All this other stuff was good, but, again.
but that's an interesting
I can
observation.
just mark this wrong right now.
All right, Glenn, you're wrong, and we're going to move on. That's I can't convince you that that was helpful, and it was just an interesting observation that nobody else put. So thank you. Don't mark that wrong. You'll have to retake the class, and you don't want to do that. You could go back and rewatch the video, I guess. All right, we're going to flip to the back side of the sheet here, and we're going to move on to question number 3, a question from the text. And if you guys can be spinning the wheel. All right, hey, Glenn, question 3. What did God reveal about Abram's future descendants?
They will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will afflict them 400 years, and God will judge that nation they serve, and they will come out in great possession.
All right. Very good. So, anybody got anything
I just
different or
added
extra?
that he kind of assured him, he will die in peace, but the fourth generation will return here.
Yeah, the fourth generation. That was kind of interesting. And it also made reference to the fact that, I'm just kind of paraphrasing this, but it's the idea there that when the time was right to judge the Amorites, that's when they would come out of captivity. And do you remember, did we read about the Amorites?
No.
Yeah, the book of Joshua, the book of Judges. They weren't fully, I'm not going to say destroyed, but they kind of became assimilated, or they became absorbed into the Israelite nation. We don't see this till much later on, 1 Kings 9, verses 20 and 21. They became slaves to Israel. So, but Israel came out, and that was a form of judgment. We talked about how the book of Joshua and Judges was more so Joshua, because people struggle with, well, why was God allowing the Israelites to destroy these people? This was God's divine judgment on these heathen, wicked people. And apparently by that time, it was time for the Amorites to be judged. So does everything work out in accordance to God's time? it could take hundreds and hundreds of years, can't it? And but it came to pass, just like God promised.
And
Yep.
also the promise, I mean, Abraham's probably thinking, I have no children, how could this be? But I mean, this is like 400 years, and then we're still talking about your descendants 400 years down the line, so.
Which is interesting. I don't think I jotted this down anywhere else, but you know, when it says God who sees, not only does he see what's going on now, but God sees the timeline, doesn't he? He sees what's coming in the future. He also knows what's happened in the past. So he's above all of that, and he can see everything that's going on. All right. Very good. Thank you. Question number 4. We'll go to, in case you can't hear this at home, it's the wheels going boop, 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 quietly. All right. she glared at me. Mom, question 4. How did Sarai and Hagar treat each other?
Sarah despised.
Okay. Sarah despised her. Okay. That's all you got? Okay. Well, that's certainly true. She did.
I kind of read it that they each didn't get along.
Yeah.
I mean, once Hagar was pregnant, she mistreated Sarai.
Yeah.
They despised
Almost
each
like-
other.
Yeah.
Almost like she had, like, power went to her head, like she's carrying his child.
Like she was better. Yeah.
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 I
That's-
said not kindly with a sad face.
Yeah.
I just put harshly.
Harshly. Yeah. Both of them treated each other harshly. Anybody over here from? Did you guys get pretty much the same, or?
No, I just thought they despised each other.
Yeah. I thought Hagar despised Sarai in her eyes. That means she treated her with contempt. She mistreated her, and then Sarai dealt harshly with Hagar. And God heard her cries of distress. You know, so obviously Hagar was being mistreated. God heard those cries from her. Pretty sad situation.
Yes.
But shouldn't that be comforting to us? If you're struggling with internal emotions going on and you're crying out in distress, God hears those cries.
Well, I also thought it was interesting. She got permission to retaliate, and then she treated evil for evil. But he's like, she's your servant. You do what you want with her. But I mean, he should have said, "Get along, ladies." You know, I mean. But he's like, you
Different-
do what you want.
That's-
But
that's
it's a
part of
different-
my number 4 for the thought.
But it's
question.
kind of a different culture. I think you had a more hands-off approach. You had the guys that did their thing, and then you had the wives and the
So
ladies
he's probably like in
off.
the field, and she's there.
Yeah, and he's probably like, whatever. Yeah, you deal
But
with
this
it.
is, this
deal
is
with
a
it.
great, this Hagar and Sarai, it's a great example for us that even if we sometimes don't behave properly, God can still use us for his plans.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so there's probably more to
we're
be.
both used in God's plans.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the point.
So there's probably more that we're going to be talking about, right, in these thought questions, even in next week's lesson as well. All right, we're going to get to question number 5.
I really wanted this question.
What, question 5?
Yeah.
Question 5 is probably one of the easiest ones. So if you spin the wheel, Chloe, you're the envy of the class right now. You got the easiest question. I'm hyping it up, not too much pressure. How old was Abram when Ishmael was born? 86. Did anybody get any? If you got a different age,
It's wrong.
that would, we would. I think that one was pretty cut and dry, right? So
Catherine got 86 as well.
what?
Catherine got 86 as well.
All right. Good job,
Are you gonna do the
Catherine. I do have a bonus
I
question.
wrote it down. You had a bonus question.
Did you see my sheet?
No?
No. I wrote down, what does Ishmael mean?
Oh, that's not what I thought.
Oh, what does Ishmael mean? Anybody know? I thought this was,
I did at one point, but I don't know what.
yeah.
I read this.
I read this too.
Ishmael means God hears.
God hears, and
I
I
knew
think
it was something with Hagar.
I think that
remember-
that was very much applicable to the question that we were, there back there in question 4. God hears, God sees, and God hears. So we learned a lot about God, right? And through this. What bonus question did you think I was going to ask?
When did Isaac come along? He came along 14 or 15 years later.
Oh, see,
Some
we're not.
places said 14,
Yeah, but we're
some
not to
places said
Isaac yet. That's
Yeah, I know.
so.
I figured you were gonna ask, so I wrote it down.
That would be jumping ahead of the story. So anyway, all right, good try.
Now we have a conversation now. I mean,
No, that was a valiant effort. That was good though. Ironically, I did have a bonus kind of question, and it just wasn't that one. So funny how that worked out. So those were some questions from the text. Probably could come up with a bunch more questions. But we're going to move into these thought questions and kind of cover some more interesting topics. So if you want to spin the wheel, this is probably the section everybody's most excited about, these thought questions. We get to discuss these things. Oh, Chloe is grabbing her chest, breathing a sigh of relief.
She's already had two,
But
so.
Rachel's not.
Yeah, but I don't think they don't take their names off the board. They just leave the names on the board. I think that's the way it's working. So Rachel gets question 1. This is kind of a difficult question, isn't it? How was Abram accounted righteous? And how is this an example for us? And I gave a bunch of verses, right? References, Genesis 15, Romans 4, Galatians 3, James 2:23, which I absolutely love that verse in that section there. But anyway, what's your answer, Rachel?
I put, he believed God, and we believe the promises God has given us, and act in faith is an account for our righteousness.
All right. Excellent.
That was excellent.
Yeah, great job. Anybody got anything extra or add anything to that?
I just said we need to have faith that God keeps his promises on his own time.
Okay, very good.
I put called a friend of God.
James 2:23. He was called. So why was he called a friend of God?
He had faith.
So he had faith, which if you look at James and really that section there, verses 18 through 24, it is an active, obedient faith. And I want to mention this because I did come across one dictionary. I believe this was part of the Blue Letter Bible. I think it was the Gesenius, whatever it was, that they said something to the effect that Abraham just believed, and he was accounted righteous, not to any work that he did. I was like, well, you can't say that. Then I put in my notes, he trusted, that's faith, right? And he obeyed. And we see that over and over and over again. And that's exactly what James is telling us. Faith without what
Works
is dead. So he uses Abraham as an example of a man who believed, and yes, he was viewed as being righteous by God, but not just because he believed. There's a lot of people in this world that claim to believe in God. But just because you believe in God, does that mean you're righteous?
no, because even the demons believe, and they're not saved.
And I'd like to point out that
There you
Abraham
go.
wasn't perfect in
No.
his belief either,
Nope.
because think about this. Had he really trusted God fully and believed in God fully, he never had to have a conception with Hagar, because he would have known that his wife would be the one to conceive. So he still had some type of misunderstanding of what God was going to do, and thought that, oh, I'll help God's plan along. He believed God was going to do it, but he thought, well, I'll help God's plan along.
I think something that we
It didn't
see
work out.
over and over and over and over again is that it's a growing faith.
Yes.
And it's a growing and it's a learning
And that's
type
what
of
I like
faith.
about characters like Abram and Sarai is they falter a little bit, but God still works. He's like, oh no, let's get back on the route that I wanted you, and then they come out stronger in the end. So it's a good example for all of us that we
Somebody had
falter.
pointed out that 10 years had passed. Was that you, Addison? 10
So,
years. So, but God told him that the child would come from Sarai.
Yeah.
So,
spoiler alerts, right? So Isaac later on is born. He's told to sacrifice Isaac, and he had faith He didn't know how it was all going to work out, but he had faith
Yeah.
that Isaac would be spared,
So at
come
this
back to
point,
life.
He's worked
He's
through
still,
these issues and like, God's told me he's gonna do this, so I'm gonna have this son somehow at the end of
so
this.
even when you're old, you can have it. You could still learn and still develop your faith, right? I mean, wouldn't that not be a great
Yes.
lesson here that we could take away from this? Going back to this idea that Abraham was a friend of God. Friends have special relationships between two people, and it's not a fickle relationship. It's not fake. It's real. This was a real relationship that God had with Abraham because Abraham was faithful to him, and we know that it's not fickle because of Proverbs 17:17. A friend's there with us through thick and thin, a true friend. Okay, and that's the way God was with Abraham. Not only is that mentioned there in James 2, verse 23, but James said that Abraham was called a friend of God, and I was like, where was Abraham called a friend of God? If you look that up, you actually see it in Isaiah 41, verse 8. Isaiah 41:8, and 2 Chronicles 20, verse 7. So Isaiah 41:8 and 2 Chronicles 20, verse 7. All right, very good. Excellent job. Who answered that one again? Yeah, that was Rachel, right? All right, good job, Rachel. Thank you. So if you want to spin the wheel, and we'll move on to question number 2. And question 2 is, what does it mean that God is Abram's shield, from chapter 15, verse 1? All right, bonus mom, a.k.a. Jody.
Okay, I said divine protection. And I said in 31:7, God didn't allow him to hurt me. And that was a cross-reference. So divine protection given by God. Our defense, our fortress, our hiding place, divine refuge. God is our shield. So all those things are
Okay, excellent.
protection. God's divine protection.
Okay, God's divine protection. Very good. Anybody?
I added
Extra.
because a shield is always held out in front of you. God was going ahead of Abraham in all of these things to provide that protection. So he had a plan for Abram, and he was out in front of him, providing that hedge for him.
That's a great thought. Makes a lot of sense. So if your shield's in front of you, do you want to turn around and run backwards?
No.
You should want to, right? You need to keep plowing forward. Yes, go forward. I also jotted down in here that he was reassuring Abram of his protection and care. It was that reassurance. And think about this, Abram had just led a victorious battle. Right? In the previous chapter, he just rescued Lot. And then he had that meeting with the king. Oh, what was that king's name again? Melchizedek, the king of Salem. And yet he was victorious, and yet he was still afraid or unsure of the future. And so God reassured him that not to be afraid. You think we need those reassurances? I think about Moses. Moses needed that reassurance. Deuteronomy 31, verse 6. How about Joshua? When Joshua took over the leadership after Moses passed away. So Joshua 1 and verse number 9. And we need that assurance today too, that God will not forsake us. He will not leave us. Hebrews 13, verses 5 and 6. However, there is a caveat to that. While he reassured Abram of this protection, didn't Abram have a responsibility to continue to obey God?
Yes.
And so the same thing would be said about the Israelite people. Blessed, in the psalmist, right? Psalm 1, verses 1 to 3, blessed is the man who is righteous, right? And then you see that contrast with the wicked in the latter part of Psalm 1. Deuteronomy 28, verses 1 and 2, there was blessings for being obedient to God. So God's promises come with caveat, or it comes with that stipulation, I guess you could say, yeah. All right, very good. We're gonna move to question number 3.
Bonus mom.
That would, what? All right, Anita, go. What does Sarai's suggestion reveal about her character in Genesis 16?
She didn't trust God enough to give her what she wanted when she prayed to him. She was impatient. And I don't know that she loved Abram enough, because I wouldn't give my husband to anybody else.
Oh, good point. Good point. Still wondering though if maybe culture could have
Yes,
played a
I
little
think
bit a part of
obviously
that.
it did, because this was not
Yeah.
an uncommon practice for them,
Yeah.
so we see it played out a few times, but
Well, and she even says, I'll give you her so that I can have my child.
yeah.
Because I mean, I think she thought that child was gonna be hers, not necessarily. So maybe she had this grandiose plan and it
Mhm.
didn't turn out the way she was planned it to turn out.
I was gonna say, not to be weird, but sometimes people do that today too, if you have somebody else carry a
Yeah.
child.
Like a surrogate parent
Yeah,
thing,
so-
yeah.
Because didn't she say, then I will have my child? I mean,
I don't remember
She did.
her saying that,
She
did
did
she?
I'd say that,
Okay,
Hagar raising the child,
yeah.
and then things turned out wrong.
And I don't know that it wasn't that she didn't trust in God. I think she didn't trust her place in God's plan. I really feel like reading the story over again, it was really that she wasn't sure of how she fit into God's plan. Because obviously she knew that there was going to be some descendants, and she trusted in that, but it wasn't her that she thought was having them.
yeah, so verse 2 does say that, go into my maid, perhaps I shall obtain children by her.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so, you know,
This is a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe she was.
And especially since her age, I mean,
I mean, they're all getting older.
yeah.
Yeah, they're a lot older.
Imagine having a baby at age.
No,
So-
thank you.
So,
Thank you, Lord, for not making us go through that.
So these are some things I wrote down about Sarah. I said she was impatient. You know, again, God doesn't work on our timeline,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's the way we, maybe because we live in a fast-paced society, right? You want something fast to eat, you go to Burger King. Look at Chuck. Or you pull something frozen out of the freezer and you pop it in the microwave, and in 5 minutes you got a meal ready to go, or your air fryer or whatever. You know, we like things speedy.
It's because we're
And-
right now people.
What's that?
We are right now people.
And probably things not really changed a whole lot. You know, they're just people. So.
Right now.
So she was a little bit impatient. Now, you know, it varies from person to person. Some people could be more patient than others. I think we've already been kind of discussing this a little bit. Insecure.
Yeah.
So, you know, I liked, Vera, what you said about she probably didn't know where she fit into the grand scheme of things. Lack of trust in God. Again, that could go back to not really sure what's going on. And not that this makes it right. Not that it makes it right. But here's a positive thing we could say about Sarah. She was a problem solver. At least what she perceived as a problem. She's getting older. Obviously, she knew that she was getting to that age where she's not going to be able to have children. So let's try to figure this out. She must have been persuasive to be able to convince Abraham that it was the right thing to do. Not that it made it right, but I guess you could look at some positive aspects from
Yeah.
this.
I said she was a problem solver, but she lacked wisdom.
Yeah.
Because this was not the way to solve the
Yeah,
problem.
no.
And this combined with, and I know it's later on that she laughs, but this combined with that shows that she lacks restraint.
yeah.
Yeah, and we'll get there. That's coming up pretty soon. Yes, Addison?
They should have asked God's counsel in this.
They
So
should
that
have,
even
yeah.
when you think we've solved the problem, we still need to make sure.
So, I mean, that's talking about her character, but you know, that's Abram too. He
Yeah.
should have as well, so.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier, and I said, I mean, Abram should have said, no, God said the child was coming through you, so.
Yeah. But sometimes don't we see men not leading the way they should be leading?
Absolutely.
How about Adam
Yep.
with Eve and
You said,
the
"No,
forbidden fruit?
We're not doing
Yeah.
Hey,
So
closed case, don't mention it again.
so
Or not that I'm right.
Right, what are you doing? Come on.
we could speculate like what would have happened. We'll never know. I don't know. You guys speculate. What would have happened had Adam stood up to Eve and said, "No, don't eat that fruit," or "You ate the fruit, now you're cursed. Woman, be gone." I don't know. You guys, we'll never know because that's not the way things played out. But anyway, we are going to go up to question 4. We got 9 minutes left. 2 questions left. Spin the wheel. Has everybody answered a question?
3.
Addison hasn't answered a question?
Uh-oh, but I think Rachel got another.
Who gets,
Oh, it was Laura, but it was this close to being Chloe.
I really didn't want this one.
I'm sorry.
so this,
Rachel,
well,
your phone
Addison
again.
can take mine.
well, I was gonna say you got
She's raised her hand.
Catherine's sheet. You got her sheet.
What?
I don't know if it was for the last one. Catherine requested that Laura reads. her
Oh,
answer.
I knew she was gonna put it on there. I didn't want to interrupt anybody, Catherine.
She says, "Read my
And it
answer."
was something that we already discussed. It was like
Hey.
she didn't believe, have as much faith as her husband, jealous of Hagar, angry that she was barren.
Well,
Yes.
try question 4. What were the consequences
Yeah,
of
I'm gonna read
Abram?
hers for
Is
question 4.
Yeah.
okay. What were the consequences of Abram and Sarah's decision to have a child with Hagar?
Ishmaelite nation came from that child, and Sarai became more jealous and angry.
Okay. Okay.
Wow.
So that was.
Perfect.
You're gonna hurt your phone.
I'm not slamming, it's just really heavy.
So is that what you put? Is it,
I put a bunch of question marks, but I was like, Sarai would be despised by Hagar. Sarai dealt harshly with her, and Hagar fled. I wasn't quite sure how.
I summed it up.
I got
Well,
all that, but I said it created a lot of drama, and ultimately God had to step in and tidy up their mess.
well, I just summed it up with one word. I mean, I put more, but one word could really sum all this up. It was conflict.
Yes.
It was a lot of conflict.
Unnecessary.
You had
conflict.
conflict between the women. You had future
between
conflict.
Sarai and Abram, because she was
Well, there
mad
would be-
at him, because look at what you've done.
You would have conflict between the sons later on, and then you would have conflict between their descendants, and that conflict is still going on.
Yes, it is.
Turn on the news and see what's going on, and we're getting caught up into that. But let's not get political.
That's why I wasn't
Yeah.
quite sure how to answer that, because that's like in a couple more chapters is when we really get into the whole conflict.
But it starts off with
Right, but yeah, I wasn't
it's-
quite sure how
the
to.
conflict.
Yeah.
Really, that's the summary of it all. Glenn, did you get anything similar to that?
Yeah, basically, everything.
Yeah, as we've been mentioned. All
I
right.
thought it was interesting, I added that Hagar was an Egyptian, so the Egyptians eventually enslave Isaac's people, and then Ishmaelites are the ones that bought Joseph and sold him into Egyptian slavery, and then there's still constant strife in the Middle East even today.
Yeah, it's conflict could have all been.
Yeah,
Avoided.
Just do it God's way.
Yeah.
Patient on His time.
Yeah, so that's kind of the last thing I have in the sheet here on my notes. So if you want to spin the wheel and we'll see who the lucky person is to answer question 5. Should be Addison because she's not answered anything, even though she's.
It's Addison.
All right, Addison, how did God respond to Hagar's mistreatment by Sarai?
I said he treated her kindly, he listened to her, and he looked after her.
Okay, looked after her. Anybody get anything?
He also gave her instructions for what she needed to do next.
Okay, yes. I wonder how hard that was for.
Part of the story, like, hey, you're gonna have to humble yourself and go
And
back.
go
and
back.
submit.
Being told to be strong.
Yeah. But I think the ideal that her son is gonna get that blessing probably strengthened her to be able to do that. Like, God saw my affliction. He's already providing a blessing in this. He's only requiring me to go back and submit. I guess I can do it his way.
So I included that he promised to make her descendants a great nation.
Yeah, that's where I
Okay.
went with it.
Yeah.
You know, that he promised her that Ishmael was gonna, you know, that her son was gonna have many, many multiplying descendants.
So from Ishmael came the Arabs, who despised Israel, and then and they were one of Israel's bitterest foes throughout history. And then from those people came Muhammad and Islam, and we know how, not to get controversial or political, how they view Israel and Christianity, for that matter. So they don't like it. Jody, did you have any conflict still going on because of bad choices many thousands and thousands of years ago? So, consequences, right? I mean, to you and I today, we can make some decisions and it might seem inconsequential, but it can impact generations to come. I did jot down in my notes here, and I was going to read this at the beginning because it's part of the conclusion, but we could just think this is important to talk about. If we're not doing things God's way, there's problems.
You got that right.
There are problems.
Consequences.
And so, you know, we said that Sarai took matters into her own hands, so to speak. Why do you think people do that, though? I mean, that's kind of a
It's the
kind of a thought
impatience.
question.
It definitely is the
Because
impatience.
we're human.
You know?
So, do you think sometimes in our impatience, though, we think we're doing right?
Yes, because it's easy enough. I mean, think of it. She knew that God was going to bless Abram with descendants, and she knew that she was going to be raising them, but she didn't realize it was coming from her womb. She still was not trusting in her place in this, and she wasn't understanding why it's not. If you promised it, why isn't it happening now? And that's easy for us to do today. Like we can definitely get impatient with when we are praying for things, or when we pray for something and we've gotten an answer, and then things seem to take a turn to the wrong again. It's hard. It's really hard on us. We're emotional beings.
Well,
Yeah.
and 10 years was a long time, but Isaac didn't come along until 25 years later.
So much later.
I mean,
So
for
a lot of
us,
times
that's
passing by.
forever.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we have to remember that, I mean, this is not happening in a bubble. These are real people, and if we put ourselves in those places, I mean, you can kind of understand the emotions that she was going through, like, not having any kids. I'm like already old. Come on, what is going on? And why is it taking so long? He was really going to bless us. So she had a lot of doubts because she's a human being with emotions.
And that's probably why she laughs later on, because a lot of time's passed and it's not come to fruition yet. So anyway, but that'll be for I think the next class we'll be talking about that.
Before
So,
Glenn says the prayer, I'm gonna give you guys an update on what they said about John. In the morning time, it sounded like it was all good. Some of them have disappeared and some of them have shrunk, but then the doctor got the full order of the person who reads it, and there's some that are still growing, so they're gonna put them on a different medicine,
It'll be 2 medications in one.
so.
okay. Well, thank you for the update. All right, Glenn, if you would close us out with a prayer.
Our great and kind Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, and thank you that we could come here and study your word tonight. Thank you so very much for the effort that Brian puts in to make these lessons possible and the study he does for it. We pray, Lord, that you'd be with this congregation and help us here. We pray that you'd be with all of our sick. We pray you'd be a special blessing on our brother John Barker. Pray that this medicine he's going to take will certainly help him and cause his cancer to shrink. And certainly pray that you continue to be with, again, him in general, his doctors, and certainly be with his family. We also pray that you be with our brother Junior Thacker, who has cancer as well, and pray that you bless him and help him in this regard as well. Pray that you watch over us now, watch us as we go home. All this we pray in Jesus' dear name. Amen.
Amen. All right, thank you guys. Bye.